Yo, what's good, everybody? What's good? Welcome back to the show. Once again, the chat is popping out the gate already. I see y'all going crazy in the chat already. I love this chat. For real. Listen, do me a favor, like and subscribe right now. If you haven't already subscribed to Buckeye Scoop, click that button and like this video. Helps the algorithm get more eyeballs on this video. All right. We're going to dive right in, man. I'm excited. Me and Funky are both excited. We got Justin. Now, Justin, I want to make sure, is it Spiro or Spiro?
It's Spiro. You got it. First
Okay,
guess
see,
was correct. Yep,
yeah, I was
Justin
thinking
Spiro.
Spiro, but I didn't want to butcher it. We got
Oh, no, it
Justin
happens all the
Spiro.
time.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure. Very happy to have Justin on the show. Couple things about Justin. He was the first cat to break the Connor Stallions on the Central Michigan sideline news. Okay, so I'm excited to talk about that first and foremost. But I start kind of doing a little bit of research and checking them out in the past couple of weeks, and you probably don't know this, Justin, but I was listening to your Twitter Spaces with Yoder. And you know, Yoder is hilarious. He's one of the Michigan guys I actually kind of like. Um,
It's no
and
wonder because a lot of those people don't like him. Like they're eating their own with him. And I don't know, you're on to something because I love the guy too. I don't care what anyone says, but sorry, go ahead.
yeah, he's cool behind the scenes. He's cool. He's the least delusional out of all of them. He has his delusions still, but it's much lower levels than theirs. And he's just a good dude in general, from what I can tell. But I enjoyed y'all's banter back and forth on that Twitter Spaces, man. I was like, oh yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to this dude. But tell the people about yourself a little bit.
This is not my day job, but I have a lot of fun with it. So, yeah, it's Michigan State grad, as you might surmise, because I talk about it like every 5 seconds on socials. Moved to Chicago, went to law school, ended up getting my MBA at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So really well educated, but not really that intelligent at the same time. But I do have strong opinions and don't mind sharing them. So, in particular on this issue, and I'm sure we're going to get into it, but it's a passion project, I think, for me, because a lot of people know, especially, I don't know if you get it down there in Columbus, because you're not living amongst these people year round. It has been a complete flip from them on how they handle this whole situation and how they handle themselves. They're trying to go all Al Davis, just win, baby. And it's the most absurd hypocrisy I've ever seen. So, yeah, those are my 3 diplomas. My 4th is going to be schooling everybody on this matter, because it's unbelievable what they're trying to get away with. I think it's funny. It's not criminal. It's just ridiculous and kind of silly. So I think we should laugh at them for it.
Nah, definitely. Funky, you want to jump in and add
So,
something?
oh yeah, no, that's absolutely spot on there. And I mean, it's more so just laughing at them and saying how they're claiming that nothing's going to happen, and they can continue to say that until something will happen. And then once something actually does happen, then they're going to act like they never said it. So it just seems like a constant loop with the Michigan fans over here. And like, I have one question for you, Justin. What do you think the punishments are going to be for Michigan at the end of this sign stealing scandal? Like, what do you think the final verdict is, as of right now, as of today?
It's tough because I was told reliably so that there are a couple components of the investigation that are still ongoing. So even though they could issue that letter, at any moment, and it can start the process, it doesn't necessarily close the door on other things they're looking at. And I don't know a lot of specifics. It's more generalities, but the takeaway, and I've talked about it with my audience before, the NCAA is frustrated, the investigators on this, because they know, in quotation marks, in their hearts, in their heads, that Michigan did real bad here, to put it in layman's terms, that this was a pretty bad, flagrant disregard of the rules and order and sort of the respect for the institution of the NCAA. And people can mock that all they want. That's fine. I don't care what anybody thinks of it. This is what their mentality is. They believe that they have a smoking gun out there to find, but they can't really find enough smoking guns where they feel they can go full bore. And that's frustrating because they feel Michigan deserves a really strict punishment. Now, they do have much more than just circumstantial evidence overall. I mean, the Connor Stallions thing, I broke the story originally, and I was the first one, I think, to report on some of the details of what the NCAA has. Michigan State turned over video evidence of this transaction, if you will, handing clothes over through a gate, and Central Michigan was in on it. There's no conspiracy. Well, there was, but not on the Michigan State side. Like, it's on tape. There's no trust me, bro, on this one. Like, that'll all come out. The NCAA already has that. So they do have some smoking gun evidence and a pile of circumstantial evidence. There's still unanswered questions, such as what was going on with Blake Corum's LLC, for example. That's one. There's a couple angles. And I was told, now this information is about 2.5 weeks old now. I don't know if it's since changed, but I was told they were frustrated with, they just want a little bit more. They got a lot. Michigan's not going to skate. This is going to be heavy, but it's just, how far can they go? So, I mean, long answer to your question, but it's hard to say, because do they get that stuff or not? Do they find what they're looking for or not to go the extra mile? I think a death penalty thing is ridiculous. That's not going to happen. Vacating wins is a step down from that. And obviously, title, but even that gets murky because the CFP is a separate entity from the Big Ten, from the NCAA, et cetera. But I think they're going to be at least at like the third rung, where you're talking about postseason ban and severe sanctions, more than just a fine. That's my guess. If they get a little bit more evidence, and I know this stuff is being looked at, or at least it was as of a couple of weeks ago, they are going to go to that second level. There's not going to be any death penalty. You can throw that out though.
Yeah. The whole death penalty thing is just, I think people just regurgitate stuff they hear. Yeah, there's no more death penalty. But you don't have to get the death penalty to get smacked and hammered the way they should. And just coming off Justin's prediction and thoughts, I wanted to kind of reiterate what Nevada Buck's final thoughts are as of a couple of days ago on what he thinks they're going to get. He has multi-year bowl ban, vacated wins from 21 through 23. It says NCAA, this is key verbiage, NCAA will not recognize Big Ten titles or the national title. Recruiting restrictions, multi-year show calls for more, probation. And then the bonus is he believes Moore will not survive as a repeat offender and being on probation and all of that. So just to quickly unpack two parts of his prediction. The caveat for the vacated wins, he says, is that initially his prediction is that they'll vacate from 21 till half of 23. And then basically the hand will be forced for the rest of the wins to be vacated by either the Big Ten. I think he said the Big Ten. And then the Big Ten titles would come crashing down. And then eventually the CFP would have to be forced to do it as well, because the NCAA not recognizing them kind of forces their hand. It's like, look, the NCAA is saying they cheated and they don't deserve these, that we need to follow suit and do what we need to do, because the Michigan argument has been the NCAA doesn't have any power to revoke the CFP championship. Sure, but there's a process, and that is the process. That is the lane that we can go down to get that to happen. So that's pretty much his prediction.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start here. I've seen, I don't know, his reports or his tweets, they've been shared with me. I'm not trying to impugn the guy. I have no idea who he is. That's not a real name. That's like an alias on a character. Right. You tell me, does that guy have any track record of being right about anything? No judgment. I honestly have no idea who he is.
Yeah. So I've been following Nevada Buck for over 20 years. And just like any insider, he's had some misses, but he's had a lot of makes as well. He does have legit sources. I mean, I've talked to him. I know the guy. He's not just some shadowy figure. The whole Nevada Buck thing is a mystique name, type of thing behind the scenes, but he definitely has sources. But here's the thing, even without his sources, in my opinion, I don't really even need that, because if you just look at what's on record, what's on file from the Big Ten commissioner, what Tony Petitti said in writing in conjunction with the NCAA, and then also the released draft letter that was released probably by Michigan. Everything.
Not probably. It was
definitely.
I know that for a fact. Actually.
Okay, well there you go. Boom, there you go. Because that's something we talked about last week. Funky, me and Funky talked about that. Nevada also was saying, hey, he thinks, because they were trying to trot it out there like it was released or leaked by ESPN. And at first I was like, okay, but after thinking about it, it didn't make sense. So now to your point, you confirmed it, and we'll get into that. But the long and short of it is that basically, I think you can see that they're going to get a heavy penalty even without someone claiming to have sources, because there's just enough there to see. And they've already declared they have evidence. The NCAA has evidence. So to your point, Justin, it's just a question of how much can they get to actually do what they want to do, to your point.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry, Justin. But yeah, no, also to add on, Nevada was kind of the first person, the big thing to break all this expansion news that was coming to, I mean, well, he was talking about that years before anyone else was, and was keeping us live updated, basically word for word, bar for bar, on what was happening with these expansion news. So that was kind of like the big thing that Nevada has gone like spot on this year. And also with the everything to do with the Michigan scandal so far on Buckeye Scoop has been, I mean, everything that came through is right. If we report it, Nevada reported it a few months ago that he heard from a source inside the NCAA that they're looking to give Sherrone Moore a show clause. And that was like, no one was really believing that at the time. It seemed like people didn't think Sherrone Moore would get any penalties for this case or whatever. People weren't sure. And so when Nevada reported on that, and was from a good source of his, and then this news article came out from ESPN saying that Sherrone Moore is likely to face a show cause, that kind of, to me, was very securing and was like, wow, like this is really happening. And even though, and then with Pete Thamel coming out and saying, oh, they're not thinking about vacating wins or taking about like postseason ban, that just makes me think, again, he got fed by Michigan. And that's also what Nevada told us the same day. Because I was thinking, we talked about on the show, I was like, oh, the NCAA leaked this to get ahead of the thing. But then Nevada came back an hour later and says, no, he thinks Michigan leaked it, and ends up, we think he's 100% correct on that now, looking back at it.
Oh, I mean, I reported it. I just we don't have the same, like, you guys aren't regular consumers of my content.
Oh yeah, no,
I flat out reported that. I mean, that's a fact, and it's funny because whenever I report something, the stupid little yellow M emojis, they all do the trust me bro meme stuff, and it's like I've been right about everything on this case, literally everything I've talked about, including Sherrone Moore deleting text messages. I don't know if you guys saw that report. They were killing me for that. I had that 2 days before ESPN or anybody. Yeah. So you can roll your eyes if you're hate watching this, if you're a Michigan fan or whatever, or you care about Michigan, or you hate these guys, or you hate me. I don't care. Scoreboard, I've been right about everything. You guys have been wrong about everything. I can say the Michigan side, and this is what they think. I happen to disagree with them because I'm talking to more than one source on multiple sides of this. The Michigan side and taking genuine belief is that this is not going to be that bad. They know it's going to be a huge fine. No matter what, they're expecting a huge fine. They don't care. The school's got more money than God. Doesn't matter to them. No one cares about that. And it's not their money anyway. It's not going out of their personal accounts. They are confident. I take that with a grain of salt, because the same people, these are legitimately plugged in people. These are not like the mailman or something. I mean, two of them in particular that I'm close with, have relationships with, are legitimately in the know and give me information all the time, but their reading of the tea leaves, the facts aren't wrong. There's no fact, but their prediction to me is a little bit optimistic. And the best example I can give, one of the sources was adamant. They're not going to suspend Harbaugh. Big Ten won't dare. They won't dare. And I said, man, I know some of the evidence because I knew about the Michigan State tape. I knew about all this stuff. I said, I think you're wrong. And they were very confident that Harbaugh, they wouldn't dare even try to suspend Harbaugh. They're threatening to leave the Big Ten, all this nonsense. And so I can report affirmatively that they think legitimately on the Michigan side to the very top, they think that they're going to get through here with just a stiff fine. As far as the Sherrone Moore thing goes, I'll ask you guys. For me, that doesn't do really much for me anyway. Michigan will throw that guy overboard in 2 seconds. They don't care. They'll sacrifice him. To me, that doesn't really do anything. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but I'm neutral on that. That doesn't move the needle for me. Giving Sherrone Moore a penalty, who cares?
Yeah, no. I agree that to an extent, but also, I mean, firing or giving a show cause to the current head coach at your institution, especially nowadays with the transfer portal, I think that could be horrible for a program for years of because guys will transfer out, especially if you don't hire in staff. That's why they hired him in the first place, because if they didn't hire him in staff, these guys would have for sure left pretty much. If they would have tried to hire someone else, maybe that guy who went to Indiana or whatever. But so, I mean, I think that's the bigger thing is right when someone leaves like that from your program, like who's the next step up? Who'd Michigan have to hire? I mean, who would they hire? Connor Stallions? I mean, like who's the heir apparent for Michigan?
Connor Stallions is not available. He actually accepted a coaching job. So yeah, he's actually not available to interview for that job. You make a good point. I didn't do a good job of making mine. Like, yes, obviously that would be a punitive damage. I mean, that would be a pretty significant punishment, going forward. But in my mind, it doesn't really reconcile like what's back here. And I'll throw it to you. I'm curious for your take on this. I was talking with one of my Michigan State good sources that gave me some of this Stallion stuff to begin with. What punishment, as someone that doesn't like Michigan, presumably, I presume you guys sure don't seem to like Michigan. If you could just choose one, death penalty is ridiculous. That's off the table. But postseason ban, even if it's multiple years, show causes for everyone. None of the coaches can ever coach again. They got to fire everybody. Vacated wins / titles. Like, which one do you take? To me, it's vacated titles all day. I don't care about anything else. Like, wipe out what happened. That's my take if I could only pick one. What's yours?
Shoot, I immediately agree. Absolutely. Because to me, if you read their message boards and if you see their little banter on social media, and listen, Justin, I'm sure because you're in the trenches with them, like you said, I'm sure you've seen this even when this first dropped. Look at their message boards from a year ago. All they care about is the natty. They basically wanted to play the long game and back off the NCAA as long as they could to stay winning on the field and get the natty and keep their memories no matter what. So to me, them titles got to be wiped out, period. Everything else is gravy. I don't care. I do care about postseason bans because that hurts them and they deserve to be hurt. But the illegitimate wins have to be taken away. That is number one. And that's what they care about the most, period.
And there's a number of reasons why I agree with you. They keep attacking the sign stealing. Oh, look at their record after. It's the common phrase, fruit of the poisonous tree. People say, even a lot of the stupid emoji people say, oh, it's a minimal, if any, advantage. Michigan won a couple games upstream, and even this year, but upstream of this 3-year run, where one play goes the other way, the whole game is different. And I'm sorry, if that's worth one play in one game, they win the first Big Ten, and then you can recruit off that momentum, and you get those extra practices, and then you sell those T-shirts, which makes more money, and you can get more money for your NIL collectives and buy more. It's fruit of the poisonous tree. So if it helped you 1% in one game in year 1 of 3, the whole thing has to go. I would say that exact same thing if it were any other school. Michigan State, I would probably delude myself at least 20% of the level they have. I can't pretend I'd be as harsh, but it's not just Michigan hate. That's common sense. Yes. You cheated, and not only did you cheat, you didn't even care that you cheated. You were playing. Honestly, I don't think they were lying to us. I think they were lying to us and themselves. I forget the whole, Connor Stallions being on the sideline wasn't a big deal, or, that's a Central Michigan problem, or, he wasn't there to help Michigan, which I actually agree with. Forget all that. That's not what they were saying that first week. And I did a whole edit on this showing people when I reported it, they were mocking me for saying not only that it was Connor Stallions, but that it even resembled him. They said it didn't even look like him. I don't know what's a better objective measure of them being wrong and delusional and us being correct and within reality than that. Where a guy who it actually was him, we know it was. Yeah. We know it was him. That's been confirmed. You said not only was it not him, it didn't even look like him. I mean, that's who's the crazy person here? It's them. It's not us. It's not.
Look, Justin, that's a great segue, because I was going to tell y'all, make sure after this live, you go to Justin's Twitter account and look at his video. It was masterful. I don't know if you saw,
Hysterical.
I commented on it. He did an excellent job. And again, I wasn't really hip to Justin like that until the last couple of weeks. And I start kind of looking at his stuff and checking him out. And you should look at the screenshots. We know Scum fans are delusional. They're at the upper echelon platinum level of delusion. We know that. But he really highlighted it, showing the screenshots, mocking him. I mean, you would have thought this dude was just the goofiest guy on the planet. So when he put the video together showing their hypocrisy and showing how wrong they were, it was just mwah, chef's kiss. But we're seeing a lot of the same rhetoric now with what they're basically proclaiming. Honestly, Justin, I think they're just posturing and just saying, screw it. We're going to down this hill and we're going to repeat what the insiders, Hinchke and Scam Webb and Bayless, we're going to repeat what they say and until the bloody end. Like for real, bro. It's crazy.
Spot on. I mean, Chris Bayless is I thought I was going to be done already. He's actually going to be next on the he's in the guillotine for the video edit that we're going to do. It's pretty
nice.
It's pretty funny already. He'll be an interesting case study, and people can check that out within a couple of days. We should be done. He's the best example of this, where the guy can't get anything right. I want to tell him, or find someone that he knows that cares about him and his well-being. Tell him to predict the sun will rise tomorrow. He has to see one go through the hoop. He's been wrong about everything. And you said it. Those people are useful idiots to the Michigan administration. But I will say, I do think it's not pure like 1984 Orwellian propaganda. It's propaganda de facto, because it's bullshit being spread on our, I don't know if I can swear on here. It's BS being spread at scale. But I think they're in on their own delusion. Or I should say, I don't think they are in on it. I think they actually believe this stuff. But again, and I did a whole video edit making fun of Bayless, Webb, and all these guys. They were threatening war if Petiti even considered the possibility of suspending Harbaugh. And I was the one reporting on, I did a whole spaces on it. I'm like, I don't know for a fact, but I know the evidence the NCAA has. I know that they have shared it with the Big Ten, and I know that it's bad stuff. And the key point being the Stallions tape was one of the many pieces. I don't know how they're confident, but no one wanted to listen to me then. And what happened? They threatened war. They said, we're going to leave the conference. There was all this stuff. I'll send you the link after that edit.
Yeah.
It's they were adamant. And what happened? The second, and by the way, Harbaugh, this was not just the bloggers, Harbaugh himself and the university itself filed actual lawsuits. Like, there were pieces of paper filed for both of them, 2 separate lawsuits coming after the Big Ten and trying to get the preliminary injunction, doing the whole TRO nonsense. They were in on it too. It wasn't like just the bloggers saying this stuff. The actual institution was, because that's a key distinction. It's very easy for people to say, oh, who cares what some crazy blogger says? No, the institution was threatening this stuff and passing that stuff to the bloggers to be their spokespeople. And look what happened. The Big Ten showed Michigan the evidence that the NCAA had given the conference. They backed down in 2 seconds. They dropped both lawsuits and accepted the exact punishment that was proposed. No negotiation. What happened to war? What happened to fire and brimstone and the apocalypse, and we're going to leave and good luck making money without us in the conference? What happened to that? That went away in 2 seconds. That's another thing they've gotten wrong. Their fans, their writers, and the school every step of the way. So, yeah, they actually do think they're going to skate here. They've been wrong about everything else. So maybe they'll get one right, but I don't believe it.
But yeah, you nailed that right on the head. The Michigan, they're going to still say it. They're going to say the same stuff the next time around too. That's the funny part. They won't learn. Like, once the Michigan, or once whatever, the NOA gets released or whatever happens, I'm not really sure the next steps or what's going to happen right now, because I've heard conflicting reports that maybe an NOA won't drop soon because they're just waiting on because I heard the longer the wait for the NOA, the better these negotiations are going for the NCAA in Michigan. That's what I've been hearing personally. And the sooner the NOA gets released, it's going to be more of like a threat towards Michigan saying, hey, like, we're going to keep going on this stuff if you don't want to sit down here and negotiate a fair and right punishment. So, but assuming the NOA gets dropped and all that stuff happens, the Michigan beat are still going to keep screaming and crying and saying, we're going to fight this. This is not over. This is not going to end, because all they want is to make it through football season. Right when they make it through this one football season, really, the subscribers are still going to be there, and they just want to make it through, and they want to drain this national championship money train for as long as they can until, in all reality, it's going to come crashing down with whatever punishments they get handed down.
Well, yeah, and I mean they were doing this in real time, and I called it out in real time. Santa Ono, the line from the reporters that they have, they were all saying they were using this like due process thing, like due process. What happened to due process? I said it at the time. That was a convenient sort of euphemism for what you're describing. Just get to the finish line, just get this season in without disruption, and that's exactly what it was. Nobody in that fan base or up there at that school was really thinking, oh my goodness, we need due process. Due process is, for one, it's a court standard, which is not even applicable here necessarily. But I agree in general with the principle of adherence to the concept of it. I'm with them on that. But that doesn't apply here. They got it on tape. The Stallions thing alone was the only thing. And it's like, that is overwhelming evidence by any standard, even if you wanted to go to a criminal court if this applied, which it doesn't. So the whole due process thing, that was all a cover. And I give them credit. That was the best way to play that, instead of just saying like, oh, this is bullshit or BS, F you guys. The best way to play it was to complain about, oh, we care about the facts. We want to know what happened, but let's just get to the truth. And there has to be a process here. But we already knew, and they knew that they had enough on tape. They didn't need any due process. We already knew enough.
Hey, Justin, I wanted to ask you kind of a two-part question. One part of it comes from the chat. They wanted me to ask you about your opinion on scam. We call them scam web. And just as a side note, before I continue, I love how much Yoder hates Sam Webb. It's just, their beef is just hilarious. But as a guy, who follows Michigan State and more in the trenches around them, he wants to know what you think about them. But also, I kind of wanted to follow up on what you said earlier about being in on their own delusion, because I've kind of went back and forth in my mind too. I'm like, is it that they actually believe this foolishness, or are they just posturing and they don't believe it, but they're just playing a role just to kind of back us off until it actually happens? Like, so you saying that, I was like, okay, well, maybe they actually do believe this, because I'm trying to give them the benefit of doubt to not be so crazy.
Why? I mean? Why would you even want to give them the benefit of the doubt? I assume you're older than 15. You look older than 15. You have a long enough track record. I mean, I'm sorry. And it always gets straw man into like, oh, you're telling me every college fan base isn't like this? They're not. I'm sorry. I have a lot of people in my family and in my immediate circle that are Ohio State grads and Notre Dame grads, for two major examples in the Midwest. And there's not one of them that's like any of them. None of them. So they're crazy. They're biased. They defended Brian Kelly killing a kid on a windy day in South Bend. But yes, we're all nuts, kind of, but not that nuts. And I don't want to get them, let them off the hook entirely. If you say they're 100% deluded, genuinely, then it lets them off the hook for the deception. There's enough sort of conscious posturing there that I can't put it at 100%, but right. I think they like 80% believe their own bullshit. Yeah. And there's a reason the term cognitive dissonance is a thing. I mean, this is it in a nutshell. Yes. So yeah, they're nuts. As far as Sam Webb goes, I don't know who or why like anyone would want to listen to Sam Webb. He is wrong about everything, similar to Ballas. Unlike Ballas, I don't like Chris Ballas as a reporter. I've never met the guy, but at least Chris Ballas is like a decent writer and can talk.
Right.
I mean, Sam Webb's bullshit isn't even well packaged, so it's BS, and it's poorly packaged BS. Even his voice is annoying. I mean, there's zero redeeming qualities. I can at least understand other people. I mean, I happen to like Yoder, but like, if people hate Yoder or whatever, like at least he's not literally annoying to listen to. So I don't say, and he has like legitimate sort of insight on stuff. Sam Webb is, I'd have to think about it, because that's a statement I'm about to make, but he might be the worst of any of them. But he's such a goofball, it's hard to take him seriously. Like Ballas is actually a little bit more dangerous, as melodramatic, but a little bit more effective, because he can package things nicely. Sam is just a clown, and he embarrasses himself. I mean, he was talking about Michigan State people don't take showers during rivalry week a couple of years ago, like just stuff that like a 9-year-old would say, "Oh, real funny, dude." Like I'm just he's the worst. I don't see the redeeming qualities. I don't get it. Whatever floats people's boats, but that's one guy I do not understand the appeal. I don't know how he has a career in it, but God bless him.
Funky, go ahead, but 1000% agree.
Oh,
I've known about Scam Webb for years, following recruiting and just Buckeye stuff. The clownery levels for him, astronomical. I agree with everything you said.
yeah, I mean, in my short time of following, or like my short-ish time compared to y'all following like this recruiting stuff really heavily, he's not even good at like doing the crystal ball thing. Like he doesn't even put in the crystal balls 2 minutes beforehand. I mean, like it's been I just don't even understand how anyone could follow him and seriously and to be on part of like such a big national program like 247. Like I don't know how he hasn't been canned yet. That's like the biggest question mark I really have when it comes to like even the reality of these other recruiting websites. Like how can you have people like Scam Web on your site and still call yourself a really credible source?
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna follow up with a question of sorry, I'm kind of changing the subject here. So if you want to say something,
oh no, go ahead. I mean, I could keep you for 3 hours talking about Sam Webb and the Michigan media and how bad they are. So yeah, I feel free to move it along.
Oh, I'm just wondering, what's your opinion on the Connor Stallions Netflix doc? Do you think it will be in anything, or do you think it's just going to be more propaganda spread for an hour?
So I actually have some insight on this. So I have a couple of mutual contacts with Connor Stallions. I've texted with Connor Stallions a couple of times, and we were talking about having him on the show. I thought we were going to get him on the show first. Maybe I was overly ambitious. So I actually have something more than just a random guess. But so I talked to some, but it is, to be fair, 1 degree of separation away. So I wouldn't report it. It's more like fun to talk about as informed speculation. But I talked to someone that is close with Stallions who is familiar with some elements of the production. And he told me, and I reported this or talked about it, whatever, with my audience a couple weeks ago. His takeaway was that our takeaway, the Ohio State fans, the Michigan State fans, oh, this is going to be a propaganda defense of Michigan, they're going to look great, is not really accurate. It's not indicting either, but it's his takeaway, and he has knowledge of sort of what they were asking him, what he talks about, what the segments were like. I don't want to give too much away to put him in a bad spot, but he's aware of like what they're covering and what the scope is. He said Michigan, in his opinion, is not going to look great. The other interesting takeaway and insight I can share with your audience, and I talked about it with my own, there was a quote in there, and I don't have it in front of me. I didn't know we were going to pull like that exact part, but there was a quote in there that I don't know if it made the final cut, but I know for a fact because my buddy saw the raw footage. There was a quote that Stallions gave effectively saying he was able to run wild, I think was the phrasing. Like he was able to kind of, it was the wild, wild west as far as he was concerned, not necessarily the program at large. So I don't know if it'll be in the documentary, but the tone will certainly be there if the exact quote isn't. Basically, the takeaway is the presentation seems to be going in a direction of Stallions is going to establish himself as the lone wolf and nobody knew anything and sort of insulate Michigan. And that part is where the Ohio State skepticism, the Michigan State skepticism may be fair. But I was told that it's going to look so ridiculous that they didn't know what was going on and had no idea. And why is this guy going on record saying that there was effectively no oversight? I hope that part makes it in the final cut, because otherwise no one will probably ever see it. I don't know if Netflix does deleted scenes or director's cuts, but my buddy saw the actual like tape. So, I mean, I know it was said, and he gave it to me verbatim what the quote was, and it presents as like, geez, what kind of program were they running there? And then you get into the institutional control. So I think our paranoia that it's going to be this defense of Michigan was a little bit too extreme. They are going to look really stupid, but he is going to establish himself as the lone wolf is what I was told.
Yeah. I mean, that all that stuff seems that seems very much how I would expect it to come off as. And, I was thinking because I know a lot of Buckeye fans have been really fearful that's just going to be super propaganda, but I've always kind of kept the opinion that if you talk about this in an unbiased statement, like for occasionally when I'm in a long car ride with a friend or whatever, I'll just ask them to read the documents that have been officially like acclimated from Tony Batiti to Michigan, or what are the notice of allegations. And if you just read that and you know nothing about what's happened, your first opinion is, wow, Michigan is screwed. Like, this is really, really bad. It's not, this is nothing, it's whatever, they're cherry picking stuff. No, I mean, an unbiased view, just reading it straight up without really knowing much about it, other than the straight facts, there's no good way to go around it. So even if you claim, yeah, he's a lone wolf, like, I never really understood that argument, because I don't really care if he's a lone wolf or not, because it's been a precedent in the NCAA for years that the head coach has full responsibility over the football program. And it's been, I forgot, some famous Michigan head coach had a quote about that a while ago.
Bo Schembechler?
Yeah, Bo Schembechler.
Yeah,
where it's
you
just
are
like,
a young guy, yeah.
yeah.
Or I'm
yeah.
old, maybe a little bit of both, but
yeah, no, no, yeah, I mean, exactly. So it's like the coach has head responsibility for the whole thing, and if he's on your staff, this ain't some random intern. I mean, he was getting paid pretty good money, and he was talking to your head coaches and your assistant coaches and your offensive coordinators, like. So, I mean, the lone wolf standpoint, even if it's true, it still doesn't help your case at all, in my opinion. So, but yeah,
well,
I'm glad I heard that, though. Yeah,
I wouldn't say it doesn't help at all. It would be worse if Michigan was in on it.
That's true.
Doesn't mean you have to have it, but you know, I have a lot of people say what you said, and like Spartans keep saying like, oh, it doesn't matter at all. It matters a little bit. I mean, like if they had evidence of Harbaugh like telling them to do it, I don't think we're going to pretend that that's zero distinction. So let's try to be like fair to them. But you're right, it's not a necessary component. And I mean, Missouri basketball got hit with vacated wins for an entire season under Frank Haith, and the crux of the punishment and the nature of it was failure to properly and adequately monitor assistant coaches. Like that was like literally the words used by the NCAA in rendering their decision to vacate the wins for that Missouri team. I think they had like a pretty good year. It was like a 23 or 24 win team. So we already have a precedent. Now, I mean, different sport, but it's the same governing body. It doesn't matter. We have a precedent of the NCAA looking at a school and saying, you didn't properly and adequately monitor an assistant who was going crazy. I don't even think there was a lying element. I'd have to look back at that case, but with or without it, they have that example, and they hammered them. They hammered them pretty hard. I mean, vacating wins, wiping them out, show causes, all that stuff. It was a pretty serious penalty. So here's the thing. The NCAA, you can't trust them. They're too harsh on this school, and then they're too light on this school. They're all over the place. That's why, you know, a lot of people are asking me what I think. I know people that are involved in this investigation and high up on the Michigan side, and nobody really knows. I don't even think the NCAA really knows, because they're still looking, like I said, for a lot of this stuff. So it is tough to predict, and they're so all over the place. But I would argue, no matter what they do with the evidence that we have, isn't them getting a severe punishment of any kind, which is coming, they are not getting off free or just with a $100 fine here. Isn't any harsh rebuke penalty, and they've already done it with Harbaugh's show cause, enough of a penalty where it's a de facto vacation in terms of legacy? To me, it is. I don't know anybody that takes them seriously or their run seriously, and that's their fault. They may have been good enough anyway. I don't know. We'll never know. Don't cheat, and it won't be a problem.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot there. I just want to quickly touch on, Justin. Thank you for giving the insight on the Netflix documentary. I was one of those who have been pounding the table of this is going to be complete crap, like to the fullest extent, propaganda piece for Michigan. So to hear that even with the attempt of the lone wolf narrative, there's still going to be some, man, these dudes look goofy. Like they really didn't have control of their program. If there's that kind of lingering, that gives me a little something, because I'm going to watch it for research purposes, because I need to discuss it. If I didn't have that role as a podcaster, I would not watch it, because it just seems like it's just going to be a puff piece to prop up Michigan and make it seem like he was just all on his own. So that's definitely good to hear that it's going to be some type of, you know, like, man, these guys, kind of some doubt there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
I mean, it was a Michigan alum that told me that, and he's friendly to the whole thing. The one thing I'll say, and just to jump in, I I don't think there's a thing that they can put on tape that is going to satisfy like you, me, people like us. So
Sure.
I preempt my reporting and my informed speculation on it with, don't come at me and say I'm wrong when everyone's mad that it's not harsh enough. Cause I'm guaranteeing you right now, none of us are going to find satisfaction in it. But I was told by a Michigan person that is aware of and saw some of the raw footage, it does not look good. Like, they look at best inept in his opinion. And this guy's a Michigan alum, tried and true. I mean, it's not a great picture for them. But with that said, I anticipate we will still be disappointed that it's not harsh enough because we're biased, and that's what it is.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'll take that little nugget because, again, I was preparing for just my stomach to be churning, just watching the goofiness ensue as I was watching. So that's definitely good to hear. And also what you mentioned about de facto, how you mentioned them getting any type of harsh penalty like we think. I mean, yeah, to me, that's all that really matters. I mean, I already at this point see their last 3 years as tainted. Just logically, just from a logical, factual level. Like, how can I fully give you respect for what you've done the last 3 years? But that's what they're trying to get. I have a Facebook page, Justin, Buckeye Sports Talk with B. Moses. All right. I post Ohio State content and just college football stuff. And I posted a video of, I don't know if you've seen the movie Little Nicky. Have you seen the movie Little Nicky? I'm a big Adam Sandler
It's been a while,
guy.
but yeah.
Okay. So there's
Classic
the scene.
Sandler.
Yes. So they have the scene where they bring Hitler in to be tormented, right? And they basically have him choose between which size pineapple he wants to be shoved up his behind. He picks a small one out, and then the guy playing Satan says, mm-mm. Then he goes and picks the biggest one out. He's like, mm-hmm. And then they show him shoving it up. So anyway, I was saying that was Michigan supposedly trying to negotiate their penalties. And you should see the butthurt Michigan fans on that post even now. But yet they say, we don't care what you suck eyes say, and we didn't. But you're coming on here by the droves to plead your case. They really do care, Justin and Funky. They care, but they try to act like they don't. So they want validation. So when these sanctions actually drop, they've been burying themselves so deep by not admitting any wrong that once they do drop and it's confirmed by the governing body, that is the NCAA, it's going to be brutal for them. And I can't wait. I'm here for it.
I mean, they are ripe for the meme culture. That was perfectly stated by you. They are the please don't tell the newspaper or put in the newspaper I was mad meme. They're the angry face behind that fake happy face meme. I mean, they're all the memes. And you're spot on. Of course they care. And a couple of things real quick. For one, I would have this opinion in terms of, wow, it's probably bad to lie and I would argue cover things up and deceive and threaten and all this nonsense. It's bad to go for anyone to go in disguise on the other side of it. Like, I would argue all that is bad for anybody. Let's say Iowa did it. Let's say Penn State did it. Let's say anybody but Ohio State, Michigan State, or Michigan did it. I think that's objectively bad stuff. To me, it's infinitely worse when you consider that it's them, the institution, which has railed against my institution and yours for my entire life and way before that. Yeah. And proclaiming that they are above it, they're righteous, and they're not cheaters like you. They're not corrupt like Shardy. They're not like the suck guys. They're above it. So all this stuff is bad from a pure, clean slate baseline. All of the stuff is bad that they did. It's infinitely worse when it's the person lecturing you for years. It's like when those politicians that are anti-everything and then they're with a prostitute in the alley. It's the same thing. I mean, so I can't pretend that they aren't different because they are. I'm sorry. I don't know about you guys. I've never heard an Iowa fan act condescending towards you guys or me or anybody. I've never seen anybody do it. Now you talk trash, but it's different. They act like they're like a better person than you. Not even just the alums, just because they liked the colors or their dad was a fan and they went there as a kid. I mean, condescending based on what? At least if you're an alum, I can kind of get it. It's a great school. It's hard to get into. Like you actually got it. They're condescending based on nothing. So you can't separate their track record. I assume you've seen some of the quotes. I know you shared a couple of them, the graphics that I've been sharing from their players and their media. specifically about you guys. And what is their response? They were all ripping Tattoo Gate in 2011. What is their response when I post their own words without commentary? Just here's what you said. What do they say? Oh, what's going on with your spring camp? Michigan State's not looking too good. Or you're obsessed with Ohio State. Why do you love Ohio State so much? Sorry, Michigan State wasn't involved in a similar scandal that you were ripping on them for. Not an NCAA rule-breaking football scenario. Michigan State's had other issues. So, yeah, it's Ohio State. Had it been Penn State that you guys were complaining about in 2011 or Iowa or Purdue, I would be talking about them. It's not even really about Ohio State. But the point is, when you're attacking and your defense is based on nothing other than ad hominem and stuff like, what's wrong with your team? No bowl game, or, oh, in your guys' case, because you guys are a much better program at this point than Michigan State is. In your case, they might say, oh, Ryan Day is a B and all this stuff, and we ran right down your throat. No substantive argument at all. And I don't know about you. If I'm right about something, if I'm falsely accused of stealing from the church collection bin, I'm not going to say, oh, what's the matter, you broke loser. I'm going to say, F you, I didn't steal anything. Like, where's your evidence of that? But if my response is to just insult you personally and make fun of your Malibu because it's not as nice as my car, what does that say about my guilt for having stolen the money from the church collection plate? It's betraying themselves with their defense, and they can say they don't care. It's the lady doth protest too much. The lady doth protest to death in this case. They can't shut up about how much they don't care. If you really didn't care, I wouldn't see you. If I were them, I'd be floating down an inner tube in Tijuana. I wouldn't even have the internet. I would be the happiest. If Michigan State ever wins a national championship in football, I don't think my family, my immediate family, can come with me. I don't think anyone in my family is going to see me again. I'm going to be on a beach somewhere forever. So why are you on the internet arguing if you don't care? You care, and you hate that you care, and they hate that it's tainted, and you're seeing the pivot. What's the pivot, guys? The pivot is J.J. McCarthy cigar pictures. Oh, cry, bro. Ryan Day memes.
Cry harder.
Photoshops. You can't play that card when you were the leaders and best for years and you were ridiculing everybody. Do you remember the origin of your coach's spat with him on a Big Ten conference call?
Yes.
Preceding the 2020 season. People forget. They all remember the hang 100 on him, all that stuff. They all remember that and the third base stuff. Everyone remembers that. They don't remember what precipitated it. It was Harbaugh calling out Ohio State for having one too many staffers photographed, accidentally shared on social media at a practice, one too many assistants at a practice in the offseason, and Harbaugh, in front of all of their peers on the Big Ten coaches conference call, calls out Ryan Day for this NCAA violation. An extra coach just standing there in an offseason practice. That was the origin of the whole hang 100 on him spat. Yep. The irony of that. So your coach, the coach that you all love and you all meme to death, your coach thought that an extra assistant attending their own practice, not infiltrating somebody else's sideline, not lying to anybody or anything, just an extra guy with a clipboard hanging out in August. Your coach that you love thought that was reason enough to call him out, his rival out publicly in front of not the general public, but in front of all of his peers and hold him to account for cheating. That's your God. It's not my God. That's your God. Thought that was worthy of open and just in their circle public condemnation. He thought that was worthy of that. But you're telling me this is much ado about nothing? You don't get to do that. So I am going to grade them on a curve, and they should be. They earn the curve. It's not just because I don't like them. I don't like a lot of people, but if they're not hypocrites, they're not hypocrites. Is there a bigger hypocrite than that institution? No.
Preach.
Yeah, and the dude with the punishment, I forgot exactly what you said, but I would argue that vacating wins and vacating the national championship would be the first thing the NCAA should do in this. And the second would be postseason bans and that stuff. Since wouldn't you actually punish them for what they actually did and vacate what actually happened in the history compared to punishing the teams in the future, which I still think they should do and will do. But wouldn't that be almost step 2 in the process?
I mean, I'd have to look back because I don't want to give it a wrong answer, but my belief is, and I know this part is a fact, the vast majority of these situations are resolved through negotiation. So like even I mentioned the Missouri basketball example, that was technically a mutual punishment, but it was kind of like gun to your head mutual. Like Missouri had to basically take it. But the vast majority of these are handshake, sorry for everything. The very few, I'm trying to think of one. There have been a couple, but very few of these are really hotly contested because they usually have the goods. They're going to get you, and the school just plays along to try to mitigate it. Michigan is unique. They have been adversarial and aggressive from day one with this, and I think it's really hurt them. I mean, it's people say, "Oh, they're out." Michigan fans, they're out to get Harbaugh. It's a witch hunt. They're kind of out to get him. Witch hunt implies that it's Salem and there's no witchcraft here. There was legitimate witchcraft here, to use the metaphor properly, but it's his fault that they're after him. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I do know the history of it. But that's the thing. I don't know if history applies to them. It's such a weird case because they don't play ball on anything. But the history is these things kind of all roll out together. They agree. They shake on it. They write it down. They sign it, and they mutually release the announcement. And there's a canned statement from the AD. We take the NCAA seriously. We're putting in policies, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know. I know what they usually do. I know Michigan is a weird institution and has been with this whole process. So I don't know if the rules really apply to them, at least in terms of what we've seen before.
Yep. Yeah, no, that all makes sense, really. I mean, this whole thing's been unprecedented because I've never seen a team or a really uncooperate as much as they've been doing, or not cooperating is the more proper term there. It's been, just the letter sounds horrible. I mean, I remember when they released the cheeseburger, what are the punishments? And they said in the punishments that like one coach refused to cooperate with this and didn't agree to this sanctions for this punishment. I remember reading that and be like, damn, I've never seen something like that ever. And it just shows to me like the extent and how hard the NCAA is really taking this. And I mean, we all knew it ended up being Harbaugh, and they suspended him for a full year with a 4-year show cause over Cheeseburger Gate, which is nothing. Michigan beat. If you would ask them what the punishment for Cheeseburger Gate would be, they would say, I mean, what a game suspension for Harbaugh at most, or whatever. They thought the 3 games was. They were all wearing like free Harbaugh t-shirts for just that Cheeseburger Gate. So if you would have told them back then that the punishment will be a 4-year show cause and a 1-year suspension, I think they would have cried for years on that. But so the fact to see that all happen, it just shows like the unprecedented of like these allegations and the multitude of the allegations and investigations going on right now at Michigan.
Well, they exacerbated their own punishment, and this isn't just my guess, although I would argue it's pretty obvious, self-evidently. But the NCAA didn't hide the ball. They explicitly explained why they were so harsh in their punishment. It was not just the transgression. It was the deception. And there was no mystery about this. It was explicitly laid out in the decision. And most of us read it at some point. It was said in black and white. So, it's interesting. Like, I think, and I've said this, I've said it 100 times publicly. I've told my Michigan sources on this. Like, I don't even want to give them the advice, but on principle, if they're my friend, I feel like I got to tell them. If I were advising them from the beginning here, I would have gone a complete different way. Their defiance, they think that's some powerful stance. Look how much good that did them when confronted with the evidence, and they get Harbaugh suspended at the end of the year. They were threatening everything, and they filed their lawsuits. I think their fire and brimstone approach has hurt them optically. I think it's hurt them in actual, tangible, practical terms. And we saw it. Harbaugh, it's not just the rule breaking. He was bothered that the NCAA was even asking him about this. It was like he was annoyed. And again, that would be bad for anybody. When it's the guy that called out Kirby Smart, that called out Mark D'Antonio, that called out Ryan Day 1,000 times, that called out Urban Meyer, said, oh, controversy follows him everywhere he goes. When you're the guy who's called everybody else out for violating NCAA rules, by the way, of smaller, like I said, extra coach at a practice, of smaller severity, lesser severity, when you're that guy, you can't then say, I'm a Bafangu, screw you, NCAA. Right. I don't care. I don't recognize your authority. You can't do that. And is there anybody in the entire country, any program or coach in the country that was less able to legitimately go that route than Jim Harbaugh, who has been even 10% his level in calling this stuff out. So of all the people to try to like get through this, I get what Michigan fans are saying when they're deluding themselves and come on, how bad is this really? But they have to understand your coach was all the way over here on what he said and what he was yelling at other people about for the entirety of his tenure, even before he had quotes in the paper about it when he was still the coach of the Niners. And then what he was actually doing is all the way over here. You can't ignore that. That's relevant. And the NCAA does not like him, and it's his fault they don't like him. It's not, they didn't pick him out of a hat.
Yeah, I thought, sorry, Brave Moses, do you have a response to that?
Actually, no. I mean, he's speaking facts, though. I mean, he's laying out the specifics of how ridiculous Harbaugh's antics are. And I think this is necessary because people who don't really do research and consider things, they need to know this, because it's more than the show calls for 4 years and the year suspension is not just about a cheeseburger, y'all. It's not. And we're providing you with the facts and details of why it got that far, because Funky, it might have been one game if he would have just complied.
True, yeah.
And said, you know what? Yeah, I got a glass of milk and a bacon cheeseburger in the morning, which is crazy talk. And saw a recruit during the dead period in COVID. Yeah, go ahead, give me my penalty. We're done here. But he didn't want to do that. He lied more than once. And then on top of that, what Justin just said, the stuff that he was doing leading up to that, calling people out for extra, just all of that. It's all of that. You know what I mean? So, yeah, people need to know that, because people don't understand the severity, how it got that severe, I should say. But real quick, I want to make sure we get Buck Nasty's super chat in. If anybody else has super chats, go ahead and send them through. We'll hit them. Basically just says, we talked about earlier when Justin asked about Nevada, says Nevada owns or has owned multiple minor league baseball teams, super sourced up and well connected in the agent community. Don't quote me on this. So yeah, Nevada, he has a lot of connections, knows a lot of people, movers and shakers. He's been around for a long time. So yeah, but anyway, so yes, Justin, I'm glad you laid that out, because there are a lot of ignorant people, and I'm not saying that in a harsh way, but they just don't know. Some of them just don't know. And I'm glad that you really laid that out for us.
It's okay if no problem. It's okay if you don't know. It's not okay to not know, not look, and still talk about this nonstop like most of these people are. Right. And like, I'll admit, I was anyone could pull my receipts. I was laughing about the cheeseburger thing at the time. I think my general takeaway was it was just so funny that like the cheeseburger receipt was the smoking gun. Like, I actually thought it was really funny. I was kind of laughing along with them. I didn't even know or like explore at the very beginning like what any of it was about. But to me, I'm more troubled by other stuff in the report and what Cheeseburger Gate says. And Matthew Dudek, who was the whistleblower effectively in this, the former director of recruiting for the University of Michigan football program, he's the one that had the quote to the NCAA that the culture, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, was to go to the line and cross it. And Jim Harbaugh, allegedly, but seemingly credibly, it's the director of recruiting on record saying this was the case, and there's evidence that it was followed through with rules violations. Jim Harbaugh explicitly ordered his director of recruiting during a recruiting dead period to get kids on campus. You want to talk about lone wolf stuff now, two separate scandals, Stallions over here, burger thing over here, but just big picture, University of Michigan, how harshly should they be punished? You have a head coach telling his director of recruiting during a period they are not to have these kids on campus to get these kids on campus. Go get me these kids. Much worse than, let's say, the director of recruiting went rogue, snuck them on, and Harbaugh bumped into him at a restaurant or caught wind that they were there and he didn't admit it, and he went and said hi and, smiled at him. And still bad. That's like a little bit worse version of what Trestle did. Trestle didn't know anything about the tattoos until after it happened. They killed Jim Trestle, murdered Jim Trestle for, after the fact, not being forthcoming, not something he had anything to do with, that he had any knowledge of contemporaneously. They wanted him skewered, all your wins gone, and that one season they were gone. And plus, basically, you had a de facto second-year vacation because you had that 6-6 team. So you basically had 2 years of hell because of it. That was for something after the fact that wasn't even that big of a deal to begin with. And now today won't even happen. They talk about, oh, sign stealing, it's only a cost-saving measure. Throw Stallions out. I don't even need them to hang you. I don't even need that scandal. You can have it. It's fun. I'll have it for fun. I'll laugh at you. I'm going to meme you to death. I'm going to report on it because I've been the best reporter on it by a mile on any side of it. But I don't even care. I don't need it. I can hang you on the first one. Because if you were saying, and the NCAA clearly agreed, that Ohio State deserved to get absolutely clobbered for Jim Trestle lying, and I'm not even saying that they were wrong, but let's go by their standard. You wanted them hammered, and they were, for lying after the fact about a trivial matter for kids that were already on the team, trading their own goods for services. You wanted him gone. You wanted Ohio State just on a plank and skewered. But your coach is telling his director of recruiting during a period they are not allowed to have kids to get me these kids on campus and schedule meetings with me and lunch dates with me. How do you make that argument with a straight face? You can't defend it. You can say cheeseburger. You can go the Stallions route and talk about sign stealing. The bottom line is Jim Harbaugh allegedly, and has not been disputed, told his director of recruiting, get me these kids on campus. Jim Trestle found out after the fact about a trivial matter for kids already on the team. There's no inducement to come to Ohio State instead of this school or that school. Okay, I'm willing to say, first of all, the Michigan thing is way worse. Let's say I'm feeling generous and say it's tied. Okay, your wins are gone. Just like Ohio State. Even if it's tied, I think Michigan's way worse. Is the Trestle thing not rather trivial in comparison? It's much worse. And by the way, they both had a cover-up. Trestle and Harbaugh both lied, so that they're tied in that category. Isn't it much worse what Harbaugh did, inducing kids consciously instead of just after the fact trying to button it up?
Yeah, no, that's spot on right there. Jim, also, I talked about this last show, but Jim Harbaugh had an seemingly obsession of cheating throughout his whole entire time coaching at Michigan and prior to Michigan. It seems like every year there would be a quote in the media talking about how, Jim, there's these all the SEC teams are cheating, Ohio State's cheating, and they're all cheating. And he kept losing to Ohio State. Well, was 0-7 at one point, or whatever, 0-5, I believe it was at one point. And then all of a sudden he starts a 3-year cheating scandal. And like it or not, if he started it or not, he let these people cross the line. He's went to Stallions most likely, or went to all the coaches and say, hey, cross the line. So do what you think you can to win these games. And that's what they did. They crossed the line. They did what they did to win these games. And to be honest, it worked. And I'm sure he would do it over and again. He'd do it 10x over again if they got the same result, which is a national championship, because all these Michigan fans love Harbaugh, and they probably won't stop loving Harbaugh. I mean, it would take a lot, but I think Jim's he had a fascination with this cheating and what can he do to cross the line. So I'm not sure why it's shocked to anyone that someone who talks about cheating will cheat, because the people who talk about cheating the most and about how good it is and how they're just winning these games, they're not getting caught. That's the most tempting thing in the world to do, is then at that point is to cheat and take advantage of what they're thinking is a flawed system. So, I mean, that's just what I think was laid out. And Jim's going to get smacked again. He's going to be a repeat offender in this whole Stallions case and be whatever. If you think a 4-year show cause is bad, I mean, a repeat offender with another level 1 violation. He's done. He's done. He won't come back, but the NFL, we'll see what the NFL does. And the NFL would half back, but that's a whole nother argument there. But he's done from college sports for a lifetime. He might get a lifetime ban, for God's sakes.
Well, and it's funny because his own attorney, Tom Mars, is echoing the same thing the fans are. Oh, Jim Harbaugh doesn't care. He's got his big $70 million contract in the NFL. What does he care? I agree with you, but what does that say about you? That you don't care at all? That you left your alma mater and your former employer in relative disgrace? I mean, I think just flat out disgrace, but people can disagree. You left them in scandal, and that there are people under you that are punished and are going to have aspersions cast on them. Sharon Moore, you don't care at all. If your argument is really, well, what do I care? I'm in the NFL. I'm rich. What does that say about your character and how much you really care about the institution? It's how much you care about the institution. It's one thing for Harbaugh and his attorney to say it. It's even weirder for Michigan fans to proudly say that he doesn't care. That's an insult. I think that to him, it's an impugnment on his character that he doesn't care. I agree with you that he doesn't care, but that's not a good thing. I would not cite that as a good thing. And I will say, you're a little cynical, and that coming from me, that's saying something. To me, that's a little insane to think like Harbaugh is sitting them down and saying, all right, here's our cross the line meeting. I doubt he even talked to Stallions more than a hello in the hallway. Like, I don't know, but I actually mostly believe the argument that Harbaugh wasn't huddled. I don't think they're ever going to find evidence, because I don't think it exists, of Harbaugh telling Connor Stallions to do his thing. But the culture did change. And then they started it was more just actions. I don't think it was an edict. And that's why, it's like killing Caesar. They didn't write anything down. It was just done. That's kind of what happened here. And that's why the NCAA is frustrated, because it's so clear. But you can't completely hang them on, oh, you had to have known. Come on, let's use common sense. You got to have something. And they do have a lot. That's why they're going to get punished. If you're really going to hammer them hard, like they had the goods on Ohio State and Jim Trestle, whatever you thought of that controversy, they had so much. I mean, they had the emails. I mean, it was just, there's no way around it. There's no Jim Harbaugh email to hang him on. But we know it's pretty clear. And like we said, we don't really have to know to hammer them, but I don't know how anybody excuses this stuff. I don't get it. I feel like I'm in crazy town, especially when they were so mad at you guys in 2011. I just makes no sense.
Yeah,
listen.
Oh,
Hold
sorry.
on, Monkey. Let me jump in, because we're actually past time. We got to wrap this up.
Oh Lord,
I'm long-winded. I'm sorry. We didn't even get into Ohio State's schedule.
I know. And listen, look, because Kirk and Nevada will be going up in about 4 minutes. All right. But listen, I hate to put you on the spot, Justin. I told you this cat was good, y'all. The chat going crazy. They love you, Justin. So we got to have you back on, because I want to follow up, because there's going to be more stuff to come out. Netflix doc, other stuff will, surely break. I would love to have you on to talk about that, and a season preview of Michigan State and Ohio State. So let's kind of, put that out there and talk about that. In the meantime, can you give the people your Twitter handle? Y'all need to follow him on Twitter.
Yep, it's Darko State News. I'm not going to tell you the whole story of why it's Darko State News, but Darko State News on X, Twitter, whatever you call it. We're all over, YouTube. You could just search Spiro Avenue, Spiro Avenue, and find our stuff there, including a lot of our reporting on this from the fall. But yeah, it's been fun, guys. Happy to come anytime, and go easy on us. We're trying to get off the mat up there in East Lansing. I feel like it's 49-0 whenever I go grab popcorn for 5 minutes every year against you guys. Getting kind of tired of it. But you and Michigan both could have beaten us by about 100. So I guess I should be thanking you guys, both of you, for laying off. But yeah, we'll be happy to come back anytime. And last thing I'll say about the schedule, is it not funny that they're mocking the ease of Ohio State's schedule?
Oh my God.
Come on, man.
UNLV in Hawaii.
Right. Get out of here. Thank you.
They were so smart. It was actually brilliant. They shrunk their season down where they just had to get through like 3 landmines and they were going to be undefeated. And they couldn't even do that in the first year. But it was actually smart. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's embarrassing, but it is smart. And you know what? They got away with it, kind of. I mean, I guess. So
Guess who showed up?
Yeah,
Yoder.
James.
Yoder just gave a $4.99 super chat and said Spiro is a closet Michigan fan. All right, we're gonna stop, because that's a whole other rant.
I can't hate an institution. I can't hate an institution that James Yoder cares about, because James Yoder's a dear friend, and I just want them to get right, come correct, and stop being such a hypocrite. But I don't.
Thanks.
To be fair, I don't think Yoder ever cared about this stuff. So that he's actually exempt from everything I'm saying. He's the outlier. That's why they don't like him, because he doesn't give a crap and just says,
You know what? We're gonna do all 4 of us next. We're gonna get Yoder on here next time too.
Oh,
How about that? Let's get that going. But listen, we're gonna do
I
a
hope I can
hard
get
stop
through it. I
now.
get starstruck. So
The chat, y'all got it cracking again. I appreciate y'all. This show was amazing. We're gonna have Justin back on, y'all. For sure. Make sure go stretch out, go pee real quick, and then hop right back on the live, because Kirk and Nevada got some heat for y'all, some scrimmage intel, too deep, and other news. So yeah, appreciate y'all joining us. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Yep. Congrats on your being the reigning Big Ten champions in football for 4 years running. That's quite impressive. You're still the last legitimate champion. See you guys. Thanks for having me.